sharing this kind of stuff with teenagers because it's like they get it and they're like, wait, all the thoughts whizzing around in my head, they're not necessarily true. And I'm like, no, they're just one part of your mind's experience.
Okay. Well, so I have to ask you the obvious question here after what we've been discussing up until this point. At what age can someone not rewire their brain, or is it always possible for them to change their ways and, be a good man or woman and stop the cycle of abuse?
Well, and I think you can always rewire your brain. I think that there are lots of couples that I've seen. My husband and I went to couples counseling when we were in year 5 of our marriage. That's what got me into imago therapy. And I really do think for both people, if you're highly invested in thinking I think the difference too is if you're in a healthy relationship, and a lot of what we've been talking about earlier is relationships that are really off, but it's hard for us all because if you haven't had a model of what a healthy relationship is, then a lot of times, or partially, some people, they've never seen their parents fight. So they don't really understand that conflict is normal and the undercurrent of every relationship, but we've got to learn to manage it in a healthy way. So if we don't understand how to do that, it's like, people feel scared. They don't know what to do. Sometimes they just clam up. They don't talk about things. Then they blow up. Everybody kind of learns these coping patterns early, and they continue to use them throughout their lives.
Well, what about people who have dealt with extreme stress or trauma their entire lives?
I definitely think it's harder with people who have had a lot of different trauma. I mean, that's kind of what we're talking about. If you are already living and you are struggling paycheck to paycheck, and then you are worried about keeping the lights on at your house, and you have all these different types of stress going on, I think the chances of things escalating, and you maybe didn't have good models in your own home. And I don't think that's necessarily socioeconomic in any way. I think there's a lot of us that didn't have the perfect model of a healthy relationship. But I think you knock in all those things and you add abuse, and it certainly makes people more reactive, less likely to look at their own part of the problem and to be vulnerable.
And people do think it's a socioeconomic problem. It's so funny, Paige, you can speak loud and clear on this because, what I was talking about earlier, too, and we discussed a little bit about my situation early in my life. They were from a very affluent family. He wasn't a loser, if you will. It was a guy that he was an engineer, came from a very nice family. And so you don't expect it, but it happens in the best of families.
It does. Those adverse childhood experiences can really, that is one of the things that imprints you and that you have to unwire sometimes is what you saw. And that can happen anywhere.
Yeah,
right.
And if you were neglected, or if you experienced some form of abuse as a child, or if there was an alcoholic in your family, or, all kinds of things. There's about, I think, 9 of them or 10 on experiences that we measure. And if you score more than 5, you have a lot to overcome. And that you take that into a relationship, you're going to react the way you go back to your childhood sometimes, the way you react to things. Or the person who's perpetrating this violence also can do that. But everything can change if you can get enough positive reinforcement and touch empathy. I think empathy is such an important if you don't have empathy, then it really is the rest of what we do, at least at the Family Place, isn't going to really reach you. If you don't care how someone else feels.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because I was discussing this with a good friend of mine last night because I was really nervous about coming on the air and talking about this because it strikes so close to home for me, on so many different levels. And so, we were just kind of talking. And one of the things that she said, I have it in my notes here. Oh, my goodness, where is it? I will find it. But she said that, oh, gosh, hold on, you guys. I'll find it. Or maybe I won't. Okay, I'll look for it when I'm not under pressure, and then I'll find it. But let me ask you this. So can anyone be too far gone to rewire their brain? I already kind of asked you that, but can they really be too far gone?
I think there's lots of studies that say that yes. I think there are some people that have had, and if you think about it, I agree with Paige. I mean, this is what, and I actually tell this to teenagers. I'm like, if you're yelling at your mom right now and disrespecting her and being unkind, and I'm not talking about an abuse situation, but I'm talking about normal teenage, maybe being a punk with your parents.
I love that word, punk.
I mean, I do too. But just the normal. I was like, this is how you're going to manage conflict. If you're always calling her and yelling at her and not taking responsibility for losing your homework or losing whatever, and then not even being kind to the person that's helping you, this is what you're going to take into your later life. Either you're going to relate to your roommates that way, or certainly girlfriends and wives down the line. So let's get that. So the nice thing is, Imago therapy has provided the model, which is exactly, and we call it Safe Conversations in Dallas, which we've done with families. But I was in part of the teen program where we were teaching teens the model. So you teach them to listen and mirror back, and then to validate, which is the opposite of "you're crazy, you don't make sense." The opposite of gaslighting is validating. And then the empathy, which is "I get you. Imagine you're feeling sad right now sharing this with me, or imagine you're feeling upset or maybe lost or maybe struggling or and so you're getting teenagers, and you can even bring in the parent that they're having conflict with and teach them both. And then sometimes the parents are like, "I should be doing this with my spouse." And then, and then it goes from there. But you're exactly right. Teaching that everybody wants to feel heard, to feel that validation. And if people can't have empathy, I don't think that they are able to move forward.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of studies where we're just too far gone. But that's why I think if we can get people into treatment early, that first police phone call, oh my goodness. Because I've seen firsthand that the Family Place program has worked. Because as I said, I think during break, that one of the couples was then referred to me for couples counseling, because of course it's not safe to do couples counseling until that violent system in the home is taken care of.
Well, I can't find those notes to save my life, but or my soul. but this is what it was about: empathy, and how a lot of times people that are perpetrators are not thinking. They're not thinking about anyone but themselves. They don't have that empathy about how this is affecting other people, and including not just their victim, but the children and the whole family. Even we talk about the pets. The pets are even. Everyone is hurt when someone is lacking empathy.
That's right. I mean, the narcissism of the world revolving around you,
right,
as the center of the universe, is one of the things that should be a warning sign when you're getting into a relationship. And the other thing you said that's really important is that they don't take responsibility for their behavior, and it's always everyone else's fault.
Yeah,
those are things that you can see early on.
Yeah.
That might say, I don't know if this is the right place to go for me to become vulnerable, because once you've opened yourself up and they don't really care, then it's almost twice as bad.
Well, yeah. And if you're raised in an empathetic home like I was, my parents both were bleeding heart liberals. They really were. And so forgiving, and just, that our whole house was just like, you forgive. I have a brother that's schizophrenic. It was all about, forgiving and forgetting, and you love him. He's your brother no matter what, and so I grew up in an environment like that. So when someone displays really bad behavior, I think if you're raised like that, you're more inclined to forgive them more easily and realize that, okay, so that's not the whole person. There's still a very good side to them. And that's the side that you kind of tend to cling to when times are good and bad.
Right. Well, I think part of the rewiring, and I think Paige mentioned this, and I don't know as much about the batterer's intervention, so I would want her to speak on that. But she just touched on that they have to come to terms with a lot of their thoughts about themselves, about their family systems, and that's what we're asking people to do. You have to get aware of your thoughts before you can start to shift them.
So great to have you ladies in studio. Thank you so much. Really, thank you. It was great. Very cathartic for me.
Good.
All right. Well, you know what?
Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. I want to let everyone know that you can go to our website, oneliferadio.com, to download and listen to our podcast and subscribe to our newsletter, or also go to iHeartMedia.com to listen live or download the free iHeartRadio app and listen to us from anywhere in the world. A big shout out to our sponsors, great companies like Sun Warrior, Squatty Potty, the H-Hemp Company, Paleo Magazine, the Wellbeing Journal, and the International Society of Sports Nutrition. Everyone, thank you for listening. You get one body, you get one mind, and you get one life. Get out there today and make the most of it.